Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of JAZZIZ Essentials. This is a series where we talk about songs, artists, and events that gave rise to the music we know and love, jazz. I'm Matt Micucci, online editor of JAZZIZ, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about 5 great jazz albums that celebrate their 50th anniversary this year. In other words, these are 5 great jazz albums that were released in 1970. Now, 1970 was the first year in an amazing decade that is synonymous with music revolution. And in jazz, it was a decade of fusion with different genres and cultures. And also, there were musicians who were including more traditional and tribal instruments within their works, while on the other hand, other musicians and artists were more eager to embrace technological advancements and modern production techniques. At the same time, while artists were more eager to move away from more traditional styles of jazz, including bebop and the swing, for example, jazz continued to reflect the times, and sometimes it really represented heavy social and political themes that often added a communicative dimension to the music. So after this brief introduction, without further ado, let's start. Let's take a look at 5 great jazz albums that were released in 1970 and therefore celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2020. The list is not going to be in order of preference or in any particular order, but if you feel like I've missed out on any, if I get enough suggestions, we could probably make a second video about this. So please feel free to leave a comment below with your suggestions. So, let's begin. Alice Coltrane, Batadi El Daoud. The superbly talented Alice Coltrane is known for making music full of spirituality and depth. This was her 3rd album as a leader and is commonly referred to as the culmination of her first period, marked by music reminiscent of her collaborations with her late husband John Coltrane. This album is also fondly remembered for its use of the concert harp within a jazz context and as her first album to feature horns on all tracks with saxophonists Joe Henderson and Pharoah Sanders. Art Ensemble of Chicago, Les Danses à Sophie. The Art Ensemble of Chicago was an avant-garde jazz group that grew out of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians in the late 1960s. Les Danses à Sophie, the soundtrack to a somewhat forgotten French film, is a musical snapshot of their intense, formative period spent in Paris and was recorded shortly after they expanded to a permanent quintet with the addition of Don Moya to an already stellar lineup. This release is also notable for including some of the ensemble's first experiments with constant drum and bass beat. Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Arguably one of the most popular jazz albums of all time, Bitches Brew marked the beginning of a new era for Miles Davis and for jazz at large. Surrounded by musicians of a newer generation, including Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, and John McLaughlin, to name but a few, Bitches Brew marked the culmination of Davis's experimentation with rock and became one of the best-selling albums of all time due to its crossover appeal. Much credit for the final work should go to Tio Macero for his innovative, splice-heavy production. Pharoah Sanders, Deaf, Dumb, Blind. Aside from being an innovator of the sheets of sound improvisational style, Pharoah Sanders is one of the major figures in spiritual free jazz. Deaf, Dumb, and Blind is one of his most popular releases, and it's a multicultural masterpiece blending American and African music traditions, featuring 2 long-form compositions, each of which takes up a whole side of the LP, and each of which is distinctly fascinating. Side A being a wild, energetic, and jubilant affair, Side B being the lush and spiritually transportive counterpart. Soft Machine, 3rd. This album is considered by many as the album that marked the maturation of Soft Machine from a psychedelic pop band into the quintessential jazz rock ensemble of savants we know and love. An ambitious double album made of 4 long-form compositions, third is like nothing ever heard before or since, with its unapologetically unpolished sound and daring sonic experimentation, including with electronics and modern production techniques. The venture remains hugely popular to this day and forged a sound that Soft Machine would continue to explore with subsequent releases. There you have it, folks. Those were 5 great jazz albums that were released in 1970 and therefore celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2020. Like I said, if you have any suggestions for more great albums that were released on this year, leave them in the comment section below and we may consider making a second video about this topic. In the meantime, if you did enjoy the video, please consider liking it and also subscribing to our channel and maybe sharing the video as well. Also, I urge you all to check out JAZZIZ.com, our regularly updated website with lots of great jazz-related content for the jazz aficionados to the jazz newbies who just want to get into this particular type of music. But do join me next week when we will continue to talk about songs, artists, and events that gave rise to the music we know and love, jazz. Till the next time, stay healthy, stay safe, stay strong.